And here's the Christian bloodline, getting back to bloodlines. It's amazing how this bloodline keeps turning up. The Piso family, the Roman aristocratic family who I feel strongly actually wrote the original gospel stories, they were the same family, and admitted to this, of Herod the Great, who they put into their stories in an historical context. They were the same bloodline as Constantine the Great, who created Christianity as we know it through the Nicene Creed. Many of the Pisos, and this is provable fact, were the early popes in the Roman Church. King Ferdinand of Spain and Queen Isabella of Castile, supporters of Christopher Columbus's journey to discover America, they were the people behind the Spanish Inquisition that burned and killed anyone who didn't agree with every element of the religion that their early ancestors on the bloodline had created and sought to impose. And King James I, a Satanist, who gave his name to the most used English version of the Bible to this day, is the same bloodline. Just a coincidence, nothing to worry about. This is what's going on behind the theme. Joseph Smith, high-degree Freemason, the founder of the Mormon Church, Merovingian bloodline. Go into my website, you'll see some ancestors of this guy who are trying to expose the Satanism that goes on in the Mormon Church, because it's just an Illuminati front, although the vast majority of its people have no idea. Brigham Young, who took over as leader from Joseph Smith. Merovingian bloodline. Who created the Jehovah's Witnesses? Charles Taze Russell. Merovingian bloodline. They're there to divide and rule us, to create prisons of the mind that we will take and allow to disconnect us from multidimensional infinity. And of course, when they die, you see some evidence of their background. This is Charles Taze Russell's grave. He was ritually sacrificed on Halloween, and they put him in this thing, you know. I hope he'll be very happy, you know. Incidentally, at the risk of being accused of being racist here, but who gives a shit? Provably, both the Mormons and the Jehovah's Witnesses, who were massively connected at the top, were funded into existence by the Rothschild Bank in New York, because the Rothschilds couldn't give a shit about Jewish people. They have mercilessly manipulated them for centuries, and in this century most grotesquely. And if we are going to allow ourselves to get pulled into the idea that because they are claimed to be of a certain genetic background, that they're not going to treat their own people like shit, then we're going to lose the plot. And it seems some people in Vancouver this week have done. Now, working, not only have you got a situation in which the bloodlines are working among themselves, they have created a secret society network, a pyramidal system through which they manipulate using people who are going to work, doing their job, going home, and have no idea what they're making a contribution to. The secret society network has been fundamental to hiding the existence of the bloodlines and introducing the agenda. And when you, I'll give you just an example here. When you start to look at these different secret societies like the Freemasons are supposed to have started in like the 1700s. No, that's when they got the name Freemasonry. These secret societies today go back right into the ancient world where the bloodlines came from. Babylon, ancient Egypt, etc. I'll give you an example. Around the time of the Crusades, in Jerusalem, 3 Knights organizations suddenly appeared, almost together, which still exist today and have among their number some of the top people in modern politics, business, banking, military, etc. One was called the Teutonic Knights, which relate to Germany, and it was through the Teutonic Knights network in this century that the Nazis were created and manifested in the horror of the first half of this century. Also about that time, a group of knights called the Knights Hospitaller of St. John of Jerusalem also appeared. Today, in their Catholic expression, they're called the Knights of Malta, and their official head is the Pope. And in their Protestant expression, they're called the Knights of St. John of Jerusalem, and their official head is the Queen of England. The other one was the Knights Templar, again, around the same time. Now, the Knights Templars' official history says that they were created to protect pilgrims who were visiting the Holy Land. Well, there were 9 of these buggers for about 9 years. You're going to protect a lot of pilgrims. I mean, it's just a cover story. By the way, the Knights Templar symbol was the red cross on the white background, which is the ancient Phoenician symbol. And what these 9 knights did is they parked their bums in Jerusalem, right next to Temple Mount. And suddenly, after about 9 years, things began to motor very fast. A couple of them came back and had discussions with this guy Bernard. You know, this guy St. Bernard, you know, they named the St. Bernard dog after and all that stuff. And what happened was that suddenly they started signing up many people, hundreds and hundreds of people, into the Knights Templar. And they were signing up the noble, royal, aristocratic families of France and then further afield. To join the Templars, you had to give them your wealth and land, so they became very wealthy very quickly. They set up 2 centers for their finances. One was in Paris, the other one was in London. These are still the terrible twins of Illuminati operational manipulation in the world today. By 1307, the King of France, Philip the Fair, who appears to have been anything but, he's up to his neck in debt to the Templars. The crown heads of Europe are up to their neck in debt to the Templars, just as their successors today have the governments of the world up to their neck in debt, because debt equals control. And what were they doing, the Templars? They were lending people money that doesn't exist and charging interest on it. Now, this is a scam that these bloodlines have played throughout history. They just do it on a global scale today. Now, Philip the Fair was really kind of fed up with this, and there are other reasons too, and he issued secret orders to purge the Templars on Friday the 13th in 1307 in France. That's why Friday the 13th has been considered unlucky ever since. I'm not saying all the Templars were malevolent and manipulators. I'm talking about the force that was controlling the Templars. So, the secret orders weren't quite secret enough. And the Templars, most of them, got away, because they had a massive fleet of ships by this time that were doing all their trade, because they were a commercial operation. And when Philip the Fair went into the headquarters in Paris to get the loot, it was empty, because they'd gone. Now, a lot of research has been done in recent years about where they went. These Templars were in the knowledge. They were part of this underground knowledge stream of this Illuminati network. The people controlling were anyway. And they definitely went 2 places, and they almost certainly went a third. The almost certainly was across here, because they knew, because of the Phoenicians, who went there long before, that America existed. Now, one way they went was from their port in La Rochelle at the time of the purge in 1307, down to Portugal, where they hid behind a Christian front, the Templars under another name, called the Knights of Christ. And they were a maritime organization. Of course they were. They had a bloody big fleet to use. And one of the most famous Grand Masters of the Knights of Christ, i.e. these Templars, fleeing Templars in Portugal, was called Prince Henry the Navigator. Now that's very significant, because one of the sea captains close to Prince Henry the Navigator was the father-in-law of Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus wasn't looking for the India and tripped over America. He knew basically where he was going because he was in this knowledge stream. And what were the flags that Columbus flew on his ships? The red cross on the white background, the Templar flag. Who financed him? Isabella and Ferdinand, the people behind the Spanish Inquisition. He was also financed by the de' Medici family, who keeps coming up. And so what was happening was this was a time the Illuminati wanted to populate America and the Americas and destroy. And here's the Christian bloodline, getting back to bloodlines. It's amazing how this bloodline keeps turning up. The Piso family, the Roman aristocratic family who I feel strongly actually wrote the original gospel stories, they were the same family, and admitted to this, of Herod the Great, who they put into their stories in an historical context. They were the same bloodline as Constantine the Great, who created Christianity as we know it through the Nicene Creed. Many of the Pisos, and this is provable fact, were the early popes in the bloodline. Just a coincidence, nothing to worry about. This is what's going on behind the theme. Joseph Smith, high-degree Freemason, the founder of the Mormon Church, Merovingian bloodline. Going to my website, Roman Church, King Ferdinand of Spain and Queen Isabella of Castile, supporters of Christopher Columbus's journey to discover America, they were the people behind the Spanish Inquisition that burned and killed anyone who didn't agree with every element of the religion that their early ancestors on the bloodline had created and sought to impose. And King James I, a Satanist, who gave his name to the most used English version of the Bible to this day, is the same